Hello and welcome to another TLDR EU video. While it's made up of 27 countries, the European Union is dominated by just two, France and Germany. From the beginning, unless either country was receptive to an idea, it rarely got talked about, and only when both agreed could discussions even begin to take place. The Franco-German axis has remained relatively stable over the past few years, if not decades, but change is on the horizon. So in this video, we'll take a look at what the future holds for the Franco-German hold on the EU, and whether, as some are calling it, we're about to see Macrons Europe. If you're a fan of the channel from France and want to represent your country, then consider picking up one of our France with Shoes pin badges. In fact, even if you're not from France, because we have high quality enamel pins for every EU country and the EU itself, plus a bunch of other nations. Also, if you buy any 3 pins and use the code Macron, you'll get a random pin signed by me added to your order for free. The link to the store is down below. Before we properly start, the idea for this video was actually taken from a paper by the Centre for European Reform, so if you want some additional reading, it's linked in the video description. There are 3 major driving forces behind this shift towards French European dominance: Brexit, Merkel's departure, and Macron himself. Let's start with Brexit. Saying that the EU is dominated by 2 countries is technically true, but it would be wrong to ignore the influence of the only member to have left the club during their time, and we're of course talking about the UK. The UK was a significant countervailing force when it came to the economics of the Union. On one hand, you had the UK pushing to defend the principles of economic libertarianism at the heart of the single market, and on the other, you had the likes of France wishing to defend ideas like the common agricultural policy. The elephant in the room for all of this is that the UK isn't part of the club anymore. That countervailing force is no more. All in all, meaning that, in the words of Charles Grant, the author of the CER paper, France's penchant for protectionism and active industrial policy, currently can go relatively unabated, with the Frugal Four only slowly trying to take over the UK's former role. The next big European exit is Merkel's in September this year. Having assumed the Chancellery of Germany way back in 2005, Angela Merkel is by far and away the most experienced and arguably most influential of Europe's leaders. Merkel was ultimately at the helm of Germany and the EU for the global financial crisis, the European sovereign debt crisis, the annexation of Crimea, the 2015 migrant crisis, Brexit, and now the coronavirus pandemic and recovery. But that time is coming to an end. In September, Germany will be heading to the polls to elect a new Chancellor, with Merkel not standing for re-election, paving the way for another major European figure to parachute in and take a political lead of Europe. Enter Mr. Macron. Whether or not you agree with him, Macron is an impassioned fan of Europe and the European Union. Macron has been the brains behind a number of different significant European ideas. In fact, only a matter of months after assuming the French Presidency, Macron became one of Europe's only leaders to talk actively and positively about the future of Europe and European integration. In said speech, Macron touched upon everything, from completing the European Economic and Monetary Union, a European intelligence agency, a financial transactions tax, so-called European universities, and of course, defence, something he'd flesh out a matter of months later. Because in 2018, at the centenary of the World War I armistice, Macron called for a true European army, divorcing itself from a reliance on the US and the NATO alliance. And as things stand, there's also been a confluence of French interests at the heart of the Union. Major key players at the head of European institutions are either French in and of themselves, or owe their position due to French support. From Ursula von der Leyen to the High Representative for Foreign Policy, Josep Borrell, and even the European Central Bank President. So Macron's personal influence has already seeped into a significant part of Europe's infrastructure. Speaking of Macron's influence, in 2019, he ultimately blocked the opening of accession talks with Albania and North Macedonia, citing the need for Europe to get its own house in order before opening the doors to others, highlighting further that the accession process, as things stand, is currently a matter of making pledges and not a bilateral process between the EU and the candidate. And when it comes to Brexit, at the 11th hour, it was Macron who put his foot down on certain critical matters, notably fishing rights for French boats, as well as strict requirements when it came to the level playing field. This defence of European values, which risked scuppering a trade deal between the UK and EU, was seen as being personally driven by Macron. And Macron ultimately has the ideal opportunity to sow the seeds of a Europe in his image through France's presidency of the EU. That's because in 2022, a new trio for the presidency of the Council of the European Union will start, beginning with France, before proceeding to the Czech Republic and Sweden. Assuming the presidency will allow France, and by definition Macron, a newfound opportunity to shape the debate on Europe and shape next moves, with the hope that key initiatives will reach material successes. In any case, the French presidency will have another significance, because despite it being its 13th presidency of the Council, it will be France's first since the introduction of the Lisbon Treaty, a treaty that fundamentally changed the European Union and European direction. This, however, all rests on Macron retaining the French presidency. As we've discussed before on this channel, France is heading to the polls in April of 2022, in what's set to be an incredibly tight race. In a poll conducted towards the tail end of May, the contest was revealed to be a clear two-way heat. Regardless of who is selected as the candidate of the centre-right, Macron and Marine Le Pen advanced to the second round. Considering all candidates, Le Pen still comes out on top of first round in every occasion. Be it taking into account the president of House de France or the infamous Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier, Le Pen still garners somewhere between 28 and 29% of first round votes, to Macron's 27%. In a hypothetical second round between the two, Macron is up ever so slightly at 54%, but it's still too close to call at the moment. And Le Pen's consistently upward trending figures are likely to squeeze that gap even further. While Le Pen has seemingly abandoned some of the more anti-European policies she previously advocated for, such as a full-scale departure from the EU and withdrawing from the euro, a Le Pen presidency would radically change the equation. Instead of having the dominant political direction of the Union led by a passionate European, it wouldn't be led by anyone in particular. Hence, France's presidency of the EU is not just simply a matter of crafting Macron's Europe, but ensuring that Europe works for France, and if you're on his side, hopefully boosting Macron's popularity domestically to help him win re-election. But what do you think? Will Merkel's departure pave the way for Macron's Europe? Will Macron choose to appeal to a more domestic audience or ignore Europe, given the 2022 elections? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that's in the description.